excellent Mr. Bhanushali. We've got Mr. Harshvardhan over here, who is bringing up such a huge experience and expertise in not only building wealth for their own selves, I'm sure, but helping others like me to, and you all also, to develop our assets more and savings more into through the businesses what we are doing. Of course, a lot of things have changed in the last few decades in terms of finance and how we manage our finance system. And I'm sure, like, with the young minds and the experience what you bring, there should be a lot of things what you would like to share. So if you can just highlight a few things about how the businesses have developed after COVID, because that's something what most of the businesses have faced. So what are the challenges you think people have come across and how they have come over those?
Sure. Oh, okay. So I think what I've seen is that after COVID there was a huge pent-up demand that hit all businesses, so business did very well. And that effect is now kind of waning a bit. So now we are coming back, so to say, to normal pre-COVID. But what had happened till quite some, because in COVID the so-called supply chain got disrupted. So it resulted in a lot of obstacles to business model demand. I don't know if anybody tried to buy a car last year. There were deliveries of 6-7 months out, which we haven't seen in the last 20 years. And it happened because there was a disruption in the component supply chain. So I think what has happened is there was a very sharp pickup of demand after COVID went away, or at least by and large went away. And then so there's a growth like this again started coming off the outside. We also have seen across the world increasing interest rates, which always acts as a dampener to companies' performance, which we are seeing in India also. So that's the second effect that I'll talk about. And the third effect is that during the COVID, there was a boom of business, and I think part of it had to do also with demonetization and GST that happened before that, where a lot of business became more formal. So market share moved from informal players to formal sector, which is an effect that's continuing. And I think those are some of the important things that I've seen since COVID.
Talking about the formal and the informal players, I believe Kaushik has also mentioned something of similar this kind in his book, Integrity, which means finance with integrity. So how exactly this has affected Indian markets according to you, and what made you actually write this book?
Thank you so much, and very good afternoon to all of you. Well, coming down to the point of book, I mean, we come from ancestral legacy financial services and distribution and FMCG distribution business background, and having seen these businesses grow in different scenarios, it was very clear that financial services, it's very easy, right? I mean, it is one of the most mistrusted businesses in India. So we got a research done by Frost & Sullivan. It was across every city of India, 30 cities, 15,000 qualitative research interviews were done. And after politicians, the second most or the least trusted profession in India was bankers and financial service providers. So that's given, right? I mean, and the biggest problem that we faced was the industry was very clearly blaming the people out there, saying that India is a trust deficit market, and that was absolutely untrue. Because if you ask each one of us in this room, India is an extremely high trust market. We are one of the largest unofficial or the parallel economy. I think rarely here there will be someone who would have not lent money to some of their friends, relatives just on the basis of trust. And it's one of the highest trusted, human trusted market in the world. आप सोना खरीदते हो, कितना ट्रस्ट है, बहुत सारे आप आंगड़िया सर्विसेज और ये वो देख लो यहाँ पे एक नोट के ऊपर, I mean, not that I am advocating that, but considering, right, I mean, as an economy or as people, we are extremely high trustworthy with each other. What we don't do is we have extremely low institutional trust. We do not trust institutions and we do not trust the legal system out there. So हमारा trust on the legal and institutional side of things have been very poor. उसका एक बहुत important कारण है कि वैसी कोई वर्दी है वैसे experiences ही हमेशा गलत हुआ है. Everybody has only experience कि जहाँ पे उसको बोला कुछ गया था और दिया कुछ और है. In terms of an institution. So we are a low institutional trust country, not a low trust country. That was very important. So institutions have failed to garner trust or to actually get that trust from people. I mean, if I have to talk about a company that's coming out there and telling you right now, as I take Tata ने अगर जो निकाला है कि guaranteed returns देंगे, probably most of us would trust here out there immediately, right? So as an institution, we have garnered that trust. In financial services, that institutional trust was missing, and that is where we realized that it was very important to create. Hence, we created One Finance, and then to support that claim, we went on to interview all these 7 million people who have actually achieved trust of people by actually delivering them good and consistent promises that were done to them, and they have been fulfilled. And the trust has only been growing from there, right? So that was the reason of writing a book, to highlight the youngsters that success doesn't have to come at the cost of your values, especially financial success, and it's never going to be that I will make money at all cost. Let that cost not be your peace, your values, or your emotional well-being of your family and yourself.
Awesome. That was quite an insight. But I believe, because talking about the trust on the formal sector and the informal sector in India, you've been working in the formal sector and in the banking and finance industry for such a long time. So how do you think this has affected in all these years? Has the trust really built in the people? Because even I remember my grandfather was into lending money to people like non-person trust. But nowadays we don't do that. So how this has impacted the new generation banks and other financial institutions now?
I tend to believe that there is a fair degree of trust in banking, especially in the government-owned banking, public sector banks. There have been instances around this history where these banks had what we technically call negative network and low capital, and if they had deposit to the Sarkari banking kya hota? Huge service that comes up. And despite the fact that they have all had prices of all kinds multiple times in the last 50-25 years, but the fact that they are owned by the government gives them a degree of credibility and trust. And so they will continue to get deposits. I think what has happened in private banks is because we have had a few banks that went into trouble. It's generally a lower level of trust in them. But there are also large and very credible private banks that are now as good as government banks in terms of how much people trust in them. The issue is on the other side. So the bank or any financial intermediary has two sides. Some, their fundamental role is to allocate capital, which means get money from people who are saving money and give to somebody who gives money. Okay. So the role of financial system, any financial institution, is fundamentally is what I call allocation of capital in the economy. You take money from savers and give it to people who need it as capital. The money from the saver side, because we had for a long time government-owned institution, is reasonably high. People trust in LIC, the trust is really high. The trust issue has been on the other side. People who have to go to banks to borrow money to get capital. Because that's where we had a large section of our businesses who could not get access for a variety of reasons. They couldn't get into that. And I think what has happened over the last 10-15 years, even that is beginning to change now. Private banks have expanded the avenue of credit. Microfinance institutions have taken credit to really the low economic strata of the population. So there have been institutional innovations and developments that have broadened access to credit, right? Broadened access to capital. I don't know whether it has improved trust. I don't have any facts to argue. But empirically, we can argue that in 2023, the access to capital in India for both businesses and individuals is way better than it was 10 years ago.
Talking about lending money or borrowing money from private banks or nationalized banks, or even talking about the funds what we normally invest in nationalized banks so that we have that trust on them. But we really get that growth for our money. I believe Ashik would be very personal. Sorry. Keval, I don't know why this question is coming up. Sorry, Keval is the best person I believe to tell us more about because he is into private finances and investments. So, if you can please give us an idea.
आप ऐसे मतलब क्वेश्चन भी बोल सकते हैं कोई इशू नहीं है शेक्सपियर ने वही बोला था call का some other name would smell as sweet so I don't have a problem with that okay so I mean in terms of investment and growth and all I think in the last session we both were together we again ended up speaking that I think we talk too much about returns when we talk about investments and actually that's not how investments work. Investments primarily, I think their objective is not growth standalone. They serve a much bigger purpose. They serve to improve the quality of your life and maintain the stability of the quality of your life or your family's life that you have achieved and help you get better experiences with certainty in your life. Those experiences could be traveling, owning a bike, going on a holiday, getting married, getting your kids married, giving them education, any of these. These are the purposes why you actually invest or work. अब या तो आपका investment ही आपका profession है, तो then again you will have to be more cautious, more alert and more involved. But अगर आपका primary profession investment नहीं है, तो like in the last session I think Susan is also here and I think that point stayed with me. Where she mentioned that your primary investment, which we all have done, right, should be yourself first. That's also a kind of investment, and that's a great point. I mean, most of us take that for granted because we have been on the other receiving side where things came in really easy. You always had that opportunity to not worry about कि हम पे पैसा हमारे घर वाले लगाते हैं. In fact, in fund management, one very important aspect is the growth of any country is directly correlated to the amount of monetary, emotional and physical investment that parents do in their kids. अगर आप कोई भी global fund manager से बात करेंगे वो एक पैरामीटर है क्योंकि तभी तो एक कंट्री का ग्रोथ है ना जहाँ पे लोग अपने आने वाली जनरेशन में पैसा लगाएंगे. So I think investment stand alone, growth is a very limited point of it, but the purpose of investment and best suited investment for that purpose has to be seen. If there is an hard goal like getting education or going for college or further education in next 2 years, then your goal can't be investing into equities because after 2 years if there is COVID or there is not going to be more money printed or high inflation, markets could be down by 50%. You can't say कि अच्छा ठीक है अब मैं market recover होगा 3 साल के बाद फिर पढ़ने जाऊँगा. You will need that money at that hard goal time. It's a time bound game. So that time FD could be the best investment vehicle because what you are looking at is a certainty over return, right? So those kind of things are very important and hence it is very important to have a right financial coach or a planner by your side and also go within yourself to identify the purpose for which you are investing.
So when it comes to investments, I believe whether we come from a salaried background or we come from a business background, everyone is more concerned about how exactly we can put in our wealth or our savings into proper assets or something. And we have got people from both the fields, one from bank and one from the investment side who would talk about mutual funds and other savings. So I will put it up to the audience over here to give the questions first if they have. I'm sure a lot of things when it comes to finance especially. So you all can please put up your questions if you have any. Yeah, there's one hand.
Am I audible?
Yes.
So as you mentioned that that there's the institution which is which is wrong and not we can't trust the institution. So what do you think are the factors that that are not letting people's trust on the institutions?
There's one. No, yeah, what's your name, Lily? Tanushri. Thank you so much, Tanushri. So what I said is, the institution trust is missing, and that's a problem. And that is missing because most of the people who are building these institutions have been misled by, conversations or those growth at all cost kind of philosophies and consistent valuations and these kind of things. So they are also in that trap. Okay. So what is missing is value-led organization. So any one of you, a lot of you would be, entrepreneurs tomorrow, starting your businesses and all that. Value-led or value-driven organizations is what ensures trust. You look about any global company, whether it is today we are talking about OpenAI, right? What was the whole case? Why Sam was moving out and why he was asked to move out? The purpose of the organization was to remain a non-profit organization. That's where all the investors, like starting from Infosys was an investor to a Microsoft and then Elon Musk, everybody was an investor. Elon Musk exited in 2018 because he was very clear that AI is not actually going to work in favor the way this is going right now until it is a controlled use of AI. So they work on higher ethics and values. While we might want to demean them just because they are Westerners right now, it's a common belief. But factually, right now, in the current situation, the eastern side of the world lacks value way more than the western side of the world because they are building all the companies. I mean, you can go to Apple, you can go to Google, you can go to something like a Shell. I have personally been there, even to their Chennai facility here. Like not wearing a seatbelt within the Shell campus, even if you are a vice president or a president or a CEO, the camera captures you not wearing a seatbelt within the campus of Shell, you are fired. You are given a 6 month salary, but you are fired. That if you are so irresponsible towards yourself, how irresponsible would you be towards everything around you? That's the kind of culture that they have. So, value-driven organizations are missing, and I think it's very important that we get them back. We had it in us, we lost it due to a lot of things, we should get it back.
Some
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Rajiv Singh. I own a company and it's a facility management company. My question is the perspective of entrepreneurship. We are living in a year of pre-COVID and post-COVID now. In last couple of years, we have seen a lot of unicorns have come up in a short span of time, which we have not witnessed in pre-COVID era, probably 30 years or 40 years of the time. Suddenly, we have been seeing them getting downwards, and there's a radical differences between investment thought process where the investors are getting panicked and the new startups are struggling now to attract new money. So, what is your opinion? What went wrong, and how now a new startup should look into it now to get more investors in the pot? In continuation to it, there is a traditional process of supply chain management that every business is being followed. Now that particular traditional processes have been disrupted, and the manufacturers are directly reaching out to the consumers, and where is the huge accumulation of the NPAs are getting increased in terms of the people like who are a C&F or a dealer or distributors. How to channelize those systems in the entrepreneurship thoughts where one can thought to create a supply chain management while into traditional businesses. So that is my question.
So on the first question about the unicorn and they're getting down, my own assessment is here is what happened. See, financial system moves like a pendulum. It has a tendency to err on both sides. So sometimes it becomes extremely generous and then becomes extremely tight. So what happened in the COVID period is that because so much interest rates became very low across the world, so a lot of capital was flowing into India, and people were desperate to deploy it without really thinking through whether that startup has a proper business model and so on. And those people kept raising more and more capital without having to prove anything about it. That went on until interest rates started going up, so the cost of money started going up. So that's when these investors suddenly became worried because what they were getting, themselves were getting as cheap money stopped. And then Margaret Thatcher used to say that someday you run out of other people's money. So these startups started running out of money, and then all their problems started becoming visible. And It has happened multiple times in the past. So I think what it means is that for new startups, the scrutiny will be much greater. You will not get easy access to capital. Because investors will ask many, many more questions now than they did, let's say, 3 years ago. And which I'm seeing happening. In fact, probably now the pendulum is swing on the other side. Even the good ones will struggle more to raise capital. I don't remember you saying supply chain disruption. Yeah, so I mean, I think a lot of the COVID-related disruptions should be overcome. They are already by and large. And because of technology, I think supply chain will keep changing. Now it's very easy for buying suppliers which are very small. So I think this will be an sort of organic evolution that will happen over a period of time. And it will make the whole system more efficient. I mean, a lot of intermediaries often add cost without adding value to the process of manufacturing. And those will be weeded out. Right? I think that's the way I look at it in the long run.
I mean, I just had some nostalgic moment because my dad was a distributor for Hindustan Unilever and attachment as well. So the CNF and all a lot of.
I've read about you, so I thought you know you like.
Yeah, so there's a lot that just rang into my head, and that was also one of the reasons why I did not join, because the manufacturers started having their own distribution network and all. But I think that's an evolution of any market. I mean, you know, what happens is at the end, customer is a king and entrepreneur. I mean, if customer is a king, then somebody has to be the slave, right, of service, and that actually person who is actually a service guy or a slave guy is an entrepreneur. We are all here to service the customer, and that's how it's going to work. You know, any intermediaries who is not adding more value will be washed out. While that happens to you, it may pinch, but inefficiency जो होगा वो एक टाइम तक ही चलता है. उसके बाद उसको हटना ही पड़ेगा. बैठे बैठे पैसा तो किसी को नहीं मिलेगा. Just because मेरे डैड ने बहुत अच्छा डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन बना दिया था, तो अगले 20 साल मेरे को मिलते जाएगा, थोड़ा सा unfair है. And world, while we may all want to believe that world is an unfair place, but the love of nature is that it's an extremely fair place. Nothing in nature is unfair. You know, eventually everything will, you know, circle back in a very balanced way at the larger scheme of things. Voluntarily, it may look like an shift of इक्विलिब्रियम जो होता है, ये टेस्ट ट्यूब से वो टेस्ट ट्यूब में पानी जाएगा, ये दोनों एक लेवल पे आकर के लेवल हो ही जाएगा. तो वो मोमेंटली आपको इस बैलेंस दिखेगा, बट इवेंचुअली हो जाता है.
Right.
Actually, I was a financial brother in the stock market. How do you see future? And traditionally, people is only interested in selling FDs. So there are the various financial products available in the market. So what is your view on that products, and how should people approach that products to get their investment in better way?
I kind of answered that initially as well. Like आपको वो प्रोडक्ट को गेज करने से पहले खुद को गेज करना है. आपका जो अपना पर्पस क्या है वो तो क्लियर कर लो. प्रोडक्ट कितना भी अच्छा है, आपको उससे क्या मतलब है अगर आपके काम का ही नहीं है. Right? I mean, if something can give you 40% of the return but also has 50% of the risk and you may need money in 6 months, you don't. So the biggest investment in the world right now also is in debt funds and not in equities, right? Government of India किसमें invest करता है? Debt funds में invest करता है ना, क्योंकि उनको repayment करना होता है. दुनिया की हर government debt में invest करती है. For a certain, sir आप share.
Questions for your part.
अच्छा, तो for like a certain allocation is done into equities and all debt, which is less than a 10% globally also, because if it's a certainty that you read, you will need different instruments. So no instrument is good or bad in itself. It's very, very wrong to say that an instrument is bad in itself. It serves a purpose, you should identify the purpose and then match it. And then there are professionals, just like I say, you don't take prescription for chemist. We used to do for a very long time. In a developing country like India, नीचे जाते थे, हम ले लेते थे, अब हमारे बच्चे हंसते हैं. पहले आप केमिस्ट को जाकर के बोलते थे पेट दर्द कर रहा हूँ, दवाई देता था, आप खा भी लेते थे. कैसे लोग को हंसते हैं ना आज हम उनके. तो हमको खुद भी बोलते हैं कि अरे यार आप तो वैसे ही 10 साल बाद जब अपने नेक्स्ट जनरेशन आएगी वो हंसेगी कि आप रैंडमली जाते थे, कोई भी आपको बोलता था कि ये स्कीम अच्छा है ले लो, तो आप ले भी लेते थे, मतलब बिना समझे कि वो आपके लिए अच्छा है कि नहीं, आपका रिस्क एपेटाइट है कि नहीं, आपकी जरूरत है कि नहीं, आपकी लायबिलिटी, आपके ऊपर कर्जा है, पीपल विल कम एंड टेल यू, एंड आई हैव सो मेनी केसेस, राइट, लायबिलिटी आपके ऊपर होम लोन है, और होम लोन बेचते वक्त आपको बोल दिया जाएगा कि सर इसका इंटरेस्ट कवर करने के लिए म्यूचुअल फंड ले लो। अरे स्टेप अप ईएमआई इज अ ऑप्शन, आप उसमें से जल्दी निकलो, आप उसका सर, क्योंकि वो तो सिर्फ म्यूचुअल फंड बेचने वाला है, अब होम लोन बेच दिया, म्यूचुअल फंड बेच दिया, फिर तीसरा आदमी आएगा कि सर एक काम करो, अब देखो आपका ईएमआई ऑलरेडी 1 लाख की जगह आपने 1.5 लाख रुपए का आपका ईएमआई होगा, जब आप घर खरीदने गए 1 करोड़ की जगह 1.5 करोड़ का घर उसने बेच दिया, सर वन सा लाइफ टाइम डिसीजन है, ऐसे थोड़ी छोड़ना होता, आप 3 BHK खरीदे, आपने खरीद लिया, 1.5 लाख की ईएमआई हो गई, 1 लाख की आपकी कैपेसिटी थी, फिर एक आदमी आया बोला 50,000 की एसआईपी करो तो इंटरेस्ट कवर हो जाएगा, वो भी आपने कर दिया, तो टेक्निकली तीसरा आदमी तो आएगा ही, सर अब आपका मरना थोड़ा ज्यादा निश्चित है स्ट्रेस से, तो आप इंश्योरेंस भी खरीद लो, बिकॉज 1 लाख रुपए की आपकी कैपेसिटी के सामने आपने 2 लाख रुपए का अगर जो खर्चा बांध दिया है, तो थोड़ा चांसेस और प्रोबेबिलिटी ऑफ डेथ वुड इंक्रीज ड्यू टू स्ट्रेस, so it's a better decision to go with the insurance. So like see, these are things which are happening, and eventually I mean it will stop someday. It's a matter of time. Like I said, chemist भी एक दिन advice करते थे, आज नहीं करते, और मतलब हम जाते थे, I know, today all of us mostly go to MDs and do not take random advice कि मेरा सर दर्द कर रहा है, मेरे को काम करो, आप स्लीपिंग पिल दे दो, नहीं लेते ना, हम पहले लेते थे, so those are the kind of things we evolve, we will evolve, कोई इशू नहीं।
सर छोटी सी चीज, जैसे आपने बोला केमिस्ट आ जाओ, पहले आप लोग केमिस्ट के पास जाते थे, आज हम गूगल के पास जाते हैं, 1mg के पास जाते हैं, भाई भी रेफरेंस पॉइंट
नहीं सर, हम गूगल और 1mg से ही प्रिस्क्रिप्शन तो हम एमडी से ही लेकर के फिर जाते हैं, वहां से मंगाते हैं, देखो प्रोक्योर आप कहां से कर रहे हो वो इंपॉर्टेंट, वो डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन है, डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन और एडवाइजरी ये दोनों अलग चीज है, क्वालिफाइड एडवाइजरी एडवाइस हो सकता है, आप मेरे से भी दवाई का नाम पूछोगे वो गलत है, लोग किसी ने वेट लॉस कर लिया 10 किलो, उसी से पूछ रहे अरे क्या लेना चाहिए, तो वो पहले करते थे, आज कोई ढंग का आदमी वो नहीं करता, वो अपने लिए अलग न्यूट्रिशनिस्ट लेता है, जो ऐसे पूछ के कर रहा है वो वेट लॉस तो नहीं करता, अपना मेटाबॉलिज्म ज्यादा खराब करता है। सर प्लीज।
सर ऑनलाइन फ्रॉड्स बहुत बढ़ गए हैं, इवन दो ऑनलाइन फ्रॉड होने के बाद अगर पुलिस में कंप्लेंट दी जाती है, उनको ये भी मालूम है कि फ्रॉडस्टर ने पैसे वहां से विड्रॉ किए हैं, उस समय ना ही ombudsman, ना ही बैंक, nobody is supporting, and public on daily basis, if you read the newspaper, everybody is losing the money. So can bank can improve their laws or any suggestions?
So I know data about the bank that I sit on the board of. Remember the audit committee, I see it every quarter. Every single fraud is reported. 99% is when the customer compromises herself or himself by sharing OTP. 99% of the cases. There is nothing bank can do about this. And I mean, I can give you reams and reams of data on this. So what the banks do, including the bank that I am associated with, is to try to improve awareness. But ultimately, it will be the consumers of bank. You can't blame bank if you have been lax in sharing your OTP with somebody, or being silly in giving your personal details to somebody who called you randomly. Those are the things you have to avoid. Because once in the bank system a legit transaction has been put through, there is nothing that the bank can stop. Bank has no way of knowing that this is a fraud if you have yourself comfort. And I am telling you, this data is 99% of such cases. And I have seen it very carefully over the last 2 years. As I said, quarter after quarter, year after year. That this is the pattern. And I am absolutely sure this will be the pattern in all other banks. So what happens is that people want to not ever blame themselves. If somebody has done this, he shared OTP and lost money, then they go crying to the bank saying, nahi hone wala hai. Even the regulator can't do it. And so the answer to this is better awareness among people on the hygiene on doing online transactions. Not clicking on unwanted signs, and all of those things. You know all of those. Because that's what constitutes fraud.
So if I will just add one.
Yeah.
I mean that was from the banking side. Just since a lot of youngsters are there, the biggest problem right now also on the stock market side is every youngster who is on social media is believing that there are these screenshots that are being posted कि मैं रोज 1 करोड़ कमाता हूँ, मेरा कोर्स ले लो. देखो जो रोज 1 करोड़ कमा रहा है ना वो 500 रुपए 5000 रुपए का कोर्स तो नहीं बेच रहा है. इतना तो कॉमन सेंस आपको लगाना पड़ेगा और अगर इतना भी कॉमन सेंस नहीं है तो आज नहीं तो कल आपको कोई ना कोई तो टोपी पहना देगा. That's like somebody who is believing that some Uganda में हम में से कितने लोग जब हम बड़े हो रहे थे तो मेरे को हर महीने 2 महीने तब याहू और जीमेल ये सब नया था तो हर 2 महीने में 3 महीने में एक युगांडा में कोई अंकल होते थे जो ढूंढ करके मेरे नाम पे 200-400 करोड़ छोड़ गए हैं पैसे के साथ फोटो भेजते थे. तो अब उसमें भी लोग बेवकूफ बन जाते थे. तो वैसे लोगों को कोई नहीं बचा सकता. They figure out a way to be duped. You can stop blaming. That's a pure greed and a nonsensical greed that kicks into people कि मैं 5,000 रुपए का कोर्स करके रोज 5 लाख रुपए कमाऊंगा. इतना वेरिएंस तो फिर पॉसिबल नहीं. That's it.
Take one question after the gentleman.
Sure.
Good afternoon, Yash here. So my question was specifically technological use on rebuilding trust in financial services, specifically technologies like blockchain. जैसे कि institutions में trust नहीं है लोगों को, तो what are the steps that we are taking and उसका adoption जो technologies ये चीजों में हमको help कर सकती है.
So building smart contracts.
So I'll share a rather cynical view on my part. I heard blockchain first in 2008. It's been 15 years. I haven't yet seen a scaled-up application of blockchain in finance in any product. And I've looked around a lot. And my reason is that we imagine that we can do it with institutions easily. That's not the case. There is a long history and reason why institutions come about. You can't push away SEBI or RBI or banks just because you believe some, Mark Twain used to say that for a man with a hammer, everything looks like a nail. So we believe every problem is a technology problem because we think we have technology. So I think some problems will be solved and it will take time. But I don't think it's a silver bullet to solving all the problems, especially problems of trust. Because instead of imposing faith in institution, you are imposing faith in technology. And more people have been defrauded in cryptocurrency than I guess in banking system in the last 2-3 years. So I honestly don't believe that's going to be an answer.
One last question.
I'll just add a little bit here. So primarily because we also run a smart contract manufacturing company, it's a technology company and that focuses a lot on blockchain. Blockchain is an age-old technology. It's a very age-old. Like it has been there since 60s. That was the first white paper. 70s was the first use case. But it was an extremely expensive technology, so it was never used. उसको करने में जो electric और ये सब जो the expenses would be very high. So till 74-75, IBM was the first one who had a dedicated smart contract use case. 70s and 80s में उन्होंने काफी सारा किया. So a lot of work has been happening on blockchain. I mean, 2008 was when the white paper for Bitcoin came out, and that's where the blockchain concept became famous. Okay. Apart from that, IoT, जो आपकी Alexa, Siri ये सब सुनते हो, ये सारा blockchain पे है. I mean, a lot of people don't know that. So we generally equate blockchain is equal to cryptocurrency. Cryptocurrency is not blockchain. Blockchain के अंदर primary use case is smart contracts. Smart contracts is basically anything that triggers ये 5 condition पूरी होने पे ये payout हो जाएगा. So something like IMPS, something like all of it is already, there's a lot of work that is happening. We are working very closely with CDSL, NSDLs to introduce smart contracts, okay, which will ensure that there is not going to be any lag for the same day settlements and all of it. So that is one of the primary uses. Smart contracts which have been adopted for the world for a very long time, and a lot of big use cases are there. Like I just mentioned, like IoTs, like most of them are on blockchain. So something that is capitalized or stored on a particular blockchain of IoT, any big IoT player, can never be erased or altered even by them. So no data can ever be erased or altered. That itself fosters trust. और basically कि आपने जो भी communication किया, it can't be like कि अच्छा वो communication altered हो गया. That can never happen with Series or the other Alexas and all these other players of the world. That's it. Thank you.
Hello. So, my question was that there is this new concept of fin influencers coming on the social media, and they have a good role to play, telling everyone as to how to do the investing and stuff. But there is also this paid partnership that comes in, and when they try to sell the product. SEBI is still in the thoughts of putting a directive or a law stopping this influencing thing. But my question here is, why is this still taking time? As to why there are still thought processes still happening. I mean, मेरे हिसाब से अभी तक this should have been come in force.
I will be short. Look, it's a dilemma between freedom of speech and regulatory clampdown. So I think SEBI probably still will. You can't stop people from saying what they want to. We have a constitutionally given right of freedom of speech. But if they are influencing, so I think ultimately some sort of they are already finding people and so on. Some regulation will come, but they have to, because it will be legally challenged and all that will happen. So my view is that probably it's a matter of time when they will do something. I still don't think they will be able to stop it, because people will find ways. That's the nature of the new technologies. But that's always been the case. It's not as if before this intro. So I don't watch it, so I don't know what they do. But before that, there were other kind of fraudulent schemes. We had all these stock scams every 2-3 years. Somebody comes and promises something and runs away to 300 crore, which has been happening last many years. So that will continue. I don't fundamentally believe laws can prevent. People have to be wiser. That's the answer to this.
Just add. So we are also, on the advisory committees, and I mean, Neil and all, they are the ones who are advising SEBI on the entire white paper, and a lot of regulations have come. I think when you said that there is nothing that is come, that's not correct factually. There are close to 12 or 13 circulars that SEBI has released in less than 24 months last. There have been penalties of up to 17 crores on people. So that's a lot of work. That has took a lot of work. I mean, SEBI is working. The chairperson of SEBI, Ms. Madhavi Puri, she is one of the most dynamic lady that we have seen in the history of SEBI, and she has been very consciously working towards it. That is one part. So there is a lot of action that has happened, and it's very fast. It has been the fastest in the history of SEBI or any regulator. One. Point number two, that influencers are a great deal. The reason why all of us today sitting out here are talking about stocks and equities and mutual funds and insurance and term plans and all is influencers. So that's a need of a country like India. ठीक है, 4 करोड़ लोग इस वक्त डिजिटल इकोनॉमी से एंड क्रिएटर इकोनॉमी से इंडिया में जुड़े हैं. देखिए, इतनी नौकरियां देने की इंडिया में कैपेसिटी नहीं है. तो ये यूथ अगर जो इस वक्त यहाँ पे नहीं होता, तो बहुत सारे लोग अज्ञानी भी होते हैं और बेरोजगार भी होते हैं. So a youth population which is not educated and has no jobs, an educated population of youth which has no jobs is going to cause a lot of wrongdoings in a society. They are a good thing. While they are becoming an educator, it's a great thing. So SEBI is going to direct them. They are not going to punish them. They need to be controlled and they need to be directed. They are doing a phenomenal job. I mean, the education, financial education in India that is increasing is because of all these bloggers, podcasters, influencers, and that needs to be continued. People need to be a little more smarter. अगर 100 लोगों में से 5 लोग ऐसे हैं जो वही 5 साल का कोर्स बेच रहे हैं, वो लेगा तो उसको कोई नहीं बचा सकता. That's it. Thank you.